I really like booking Royal Rumbles. I won't get to book one like the next proper one for 6 months, so I'm going to book one now. That's the cold open. That's what you're getting. Hello, I'm Adam, hailing from Parts Unknown, and welcome to How Adam Would Book. And this time we're looking at the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. For decades, all the big stuff in wrestling, the main event, the barbaric stipulations, the pomp and the pyro were male by default. Walking into WWE Creative in a year, even like 2013, and suggesting women main event a pay-per-view would have been tantamount to suggesting that 2 referees be given the headline spot. People don't hate referees, except Mike Chioda, he knows what he did, but it would have just made an equal amount of industrial sense. Of course, the actual women's revolution started in NXT, and when the 4 horsewomen of NXT, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch, credited by WWE's PR machine as being the pioneers of the seismic shift in the perception of women's wrestling, so sorry about that, Paige and Emma. When those 4 finally made it to the main roster, a whole bunch of firsts followed. In 2016, there was the double whammy of the first women's Hell in a Cell match, and also the first time that 2 women had ever main evented an official WWE pay-per-view. In 2017, the company line of women should get access to all the same matches that men do continued strong, with WWE presenting the first ever women's Money in the Bank match. Admittedly won by a man. Don't think about that. Don't think about that. However, that led to the second ever women's Money in the Bank match shortly after. That had a proper finish, so I guess value for money in the bank. Shortly thereafter, Nikki Cross and Asuka had the first ever last woman standing match in company history down in NXT, a superbly brutal affair that just served to confirm that kicking someone as hard as you can in the f***ing head truly has no gender. Over the last few years, we've seen women afforded access to pretty much all the special match stipulations that WWE had in their arsenal, but there was one glaring exception. There hadn't yet been a Women's Royal Rumble match. On January 28th, 2018, that finally changed. But first, a word from our sponsor, Surfshark. It's going to be harder to cram Royal Rumble references into a VPN ad, but I'll do my best. Does region lock content make you feel like it's every man for themselves out there? Do you want to be able to watch your favorite over-the-top rope streaming service no matter where you are in the world? Try Surfshark, a secure VPN that offers top-of-the-line encryption so that you can browse the internet safely from servers in over 60 countries. 60 is the number of people that compete in Royal Rumbles every year. It's all connected. Get your HBO fix in the UK. Have you seen the new trailer for Succession? Blimey. Get your Netflix Japan fix in the USA. You'll be putting your feet up to watch so much telly that both your feet will never touch the floor again. That didn't work, that one. Head on over to surfshark.deals/jamthatjam, enter promo code jamthatjam to get 83% off your subscription and 3 months for free, whilst also letting them know that Parts of Unknown sent you. Again, that's surfshark.deals/jamthatjam, enter promo code jamthatjam to get 83% off and 3 months for free. Okay, so I want to be clear about something before we start. I liked the first ever Women's Royal Rumble match. I didn't love it, there have been much better ones since, but I liked it. For starters, the whole thing did feel huge. WWE rely a little too much on the whole making history pomp from time to time. My God, it's Jinder versus Sami Zayn for the first time in Raw history. But sometimes it genuinely feels like you're watching something legit groundbreaking, and this match felt like that. Mostly. It was stuffed full of surprises, nice spots, absolutely the right woman won in the form of the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka. It was pretty good, although I don't know if it has any moments in it that are up there with the best moments in men's Rumble history. Becky's entrance in the 2019 Rumble is the first major one of those, I think. And yes, some other really weird choices and omissions and sacrificing important character moments in the name of celeb-chasing pageantry. God, it's so hot in this room. It's so noisy outside, so I had to close the door. And I'm sweating. I can't deal with it. But first, the things about the match that really work. Sasha Banks proved herself to be WWE's resident Iron Woman, highly appropriate considering that Banks was the only woman to appear in both of the only Iron Woman matches in company history. She entered at number 1, made it all the way to the final 4, putting in a historic 55-minute stretch. Nice work, boss. Nia Jax was booked to look like a true monster, racking up a number of eliminations, requiring 6 people to throw her out, which served her character perfectly. The character she had before she kept falling down on her bum, of course. Some of the surprise entrants were booked very well. Some were booked too well. Some led to a number of chance encounters and team-ups that popped the crowd. Beth Phoenix and Natalya reunited as the Divas of Doom before sudden and inevitable betrayal. Vicky Guerrero was ousted by the entire field. Asuka and Ember Moon rekindled their awesome NXT rivalry with Asuka. And the best face-off, in my opinion anyway, was Mickie James and Trish Stratus. Speaking of people that do not and cannot age, Michelle McCool turned up to somehow get the most eliminations. Tori Wilson somehow looked exactly the same as when she left 10 years ago. Molly Holly mixed it up with such apparent ease that she legitimately could slot right back into the main roster tomorrow. And also Kelly Kelly was there. The woman so nice they named her twice. Why can't she do her one move? So Asuka won, hooray. That was before they forgot about Asuka, so that was a good time. The roster's biggest ass kicker, winning the Rumble, legitimized it in a way that Rousey waltzing in and walking off with a W actually probably would not have. Just a bit of a shame that her achievement was somewhat overshadowed, and that's as good a segue as any into the problems I had with the first Women's Royal Rumble. First off, there was an over-reliance on nostalgic returns. However, this was kind of to be expected. They booked a 30-woman Rumble with a full-time roster of like 20. For the most part, kind of worked in the Rumble's favor. 10 empty slots generated plenty of hype in advance of the match, with fans speculating on who would be brought in to fill the gaps. Lita and Trish seemed dead cert, but who else? Perhaps a large amount of NXT call-ups like Nikki Cross or Peyton Royce, Attitude Era superstars like Ivory. Maybe all of the stars would align and we'd finally get to see Cameron one last time. Also, another mini positive, the large chunk of stars from yesteryear that they used provided a potted, if selective, timeline of women's wrestling and WWE for the casual fans, and generated a tangibly historic feel for the hardcores. And it cannot be stressed enough, Kelly Kelly was also there. However, some of the stars were used in quite head-scratching ways. Some made arguably too much impact. If I were to tell you in advance that Nia Jax would not walk away from the Rumble with the most eliminations, with that honor going to Michelle McCool, you probably think I'd gone mad. On the other end of the scale, the majority of the historic cameos followed a very similar formula. They would arrive, stick around for less than 5 minutes before being ousted. Whilst this made sense from a practical perspective, it also created a strange conveyor belt feeling to the match. Here's one, gone. Here's one, gone, which stripped away a little bit of how legitimate the whole thing felt. Kind of a real just parade of moments rather than an overall whole. Also, in a baffling omission, Lita and Trish didn't face off, which I'm just f***ing livid about. Why would you? I'm f***ing livid about it. The combination of wrestlers chosen for the final four was also, in my opinion, a poor choice. Well, maybe not four. The final three was baffling. Asuka versus the Bellas is not really up for debate. That's not a which way will this go situation. That's a how many times is Asuka going to kick these reality women in the head situation. Sasha being part of the final four was a great call, as she could have legitimately gone all the way, but once she got the heave toe, the last stand felt a bit lifeless. And when you compare it to the final four of the men's Rumble, where any one of them could have legitimately won, and the final two came down to guys who were both rumored to be in world title matches at Mania, that is a perfect recipe for tension. It's not the biggest grumble, but the end game of the Royal Rumble is arguably the best and most important bit of the match within the match, and the section that needs the most careful management of audience expectations, which this lacked. And then there's Ronnie. Regardless of your thoughts on superstar athletes being fast-tracked to prominence, Ronda Rousey was a huge asset to WWE and also overperformed in the majority of her matches. However, her debut didn't really help establish a relationship between Ronda and the fans, a relationship that was almost guaranteed to sour over time, which it did. Side note between us, would have loved if they'd turned Ronda heel earlier. Would have loved a bit more time with Hollywood Ronda, just protected by management, big leaguing the entire division, proper asshole run. But hey ho, that's not the story we're telling now. So after Asuka became the first ever Women's Rumble winner, she got in the ring, was set to make the first ever decision about who she was gonna face at her first ever WrestleMania when Ronda Rousey's music hit. The cross-culture megastar ambled down to the ring in Roddy Piper cosplay, pointed to the Mania sign in the most wonderfully unnatural way possible, shook Steph's hand, and then skipped away, pausing one more time to gesture at the sign in a manner that suggested she only learned how to point from a poorly translated book without pictures. Asuka didn't get to make her Mania decision, which is not something that she kind of had to make on the night. Like, that was fine, but her being in the ring and then immediately not being talked about it's like, that sucks. To become the third most important person in the ring after winning the Rumble in the space of 3 minutes. Ronda's debut essentially main evented the show over the match designed to showcase the history of women's wrestling. In some ways, I get it, big night, big moment, but it didn't really feel human. WWE never really feels human, does it? I'm aware that to some the match meant so much on an emotional level they couldn't care less about the nuts and bolts of the booking. It's completely fair. I don't want to suggest that people shouldn't be praising the match, but also 1, Rumble bookings are a whole bunch of fun for me to do, and 2, there are so many fun elements at play that it could really have gone up a couple of notches. With that being said, let me have a go. First things first, keep Stephanie McMahon on commentary. I know. She was absolutely dreadful the entire match, offering up keen insights like she held on and asking the important questions like, who's it gonna be? But honestly, this time there is a reason to keep her around. I pinky promise. There's one last very important change that I would make before the match starts, however, and that is the fact that Charlotte is not the SmackDown Women's Champion. On the last SmackDown Live before the Royal Rumble, after suffering a severe beating from the Riot Squad, heat them up before the Rumble, I would have had Carmella successfully cash in her Money in the Bank briefcase, pin Charlotte to become new SmackDown Women's Champion. You will understand why before too long. So Alexa, Carmella, both at ringside. We start the Women's Rumble very similarly to how it started in real life with its first entrant, Sasha Banks. Sasha is a magnificent choice for the first ever entrant in a Women's Rumble. It's completely on gimmick. Nothing says boss like swaggering down to the ring in the HBK spot. Sasha's been involved in pretty much most of the important first moments in Western women's wrestling, so of course she's there. Continuing that narrative, the second entrant has to be number 2, Bayley. I think you and I are destined to do this forever. You can argue that a number of different matches are responsible for the meteoric rise in mainstream's acceptance of major women's wrestling, but Sasha versus Bayley at TakeOver Brooklyn is probably still the best one. When competitors have a classic like that, like an iconic match, they become bound together in wrestling lore. They are Steamboat and Flair, and no matter how far apart they get, whenever Sasha and Bayley come back together, it will always mean something. And in that sense, what better combination of women could start this particular Royal Rumble? They shake hands in the middle of the ring, they lock up. Nothing rams the point home that there are no friends in the Royal Rumble than the first 2 entrants being, at the time, bestest buds. Both women take it in turns, throwing each other over the top rope, but both manage to save themselves. Number 3, Liv Morgan. The Jersey girl of the Riot Squad runs in, allowing Banks and Bayley to briefly get on the same page to try and ruin poor Liv. Banks locks her in the Banks statement, then rolls out of the way as Bayley hits her with an elbow drop. Number 4, Ruby Riott. The leader of the Riot Squad enters and saves her teammate Morgan from being eliminated. The match then briefly turns into a tag affair, again repositioning Banks and Bayley from friendly rivals that they were at the start of the match into the Boss and Hug connection, which they're gonna be for pretty much the rest of the Rumble. Number 5, Sonya Deville, the first member of Absolution. Do you remember Absolution? Enters the match and delivers hard strikes to everyone. For a time, Deville manages to deliver a beating to both Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan because she's fresher than both women, and also she's Sonya Deville, and she's great. Number 6, Sarah Logan. The Riot Squad is complete, and I don't want to say it. I don't want it. They run riot on everyone. Oh, I'm so sorry. Ruby directs traffic as the 3 women kick the crap out of Sasha Bayley, hitting them with a number of double team moves. Then they go and surround Sonya Deville. They go for her, but she slides out of the ring under the bottom rope as the counter counts down to 0. And at number 7, in comes Mandy Rose. The second member of Absolution walks down to the ring accompanied by Paige, who was removed from the Rumble after tragically suffering a neck injury shortly beforehand and has not since been cleared to compete. Paige, Rose, and Deville get into the ring and stand toe-to-toe with the Riot Squad, trying their hardest to avoid doing the doink doink mirror stick from WrestleMania 9. They mouth off at each other before coming to blows, though Paige obviously doesn't mix it up because of her injury. I don't want to kind of trivialize like the injury at all, but for the sake of this booking, I'm going to assume she can throw some super kicks. That's just what I'm doing for this booking. Paige super kicks Ruby as Deville and Rose overpower Morgan and Logan. Absolution collectively throw the Riot Squad out of the ring, but immediately following that, Sasha and Bayley throw Rose and Deville out as well. well. Paige then stands in the middle of the ring with Sasha and Bayley. They gesture her to leave the ring. She smiles, downs Bayley with a super kick, ducks a clothesline from Sasha, lays her out with 1-2, and then Paige just stands in the middle of the ring. She bows in front of the fans who don't all remember that actually the women's revolution in NXT started with her. She bows, leaves the ring, walks to the back. The only people left in the match are Sasha and Bayley lying on the canvas. In comes number 8, Billie Kay. One of the funniest people to ever hold a live mic, Billie Kay makes her main roster debut and exploits the fact that Sasha and Bayley are out of it to very slowly make her way down to the ring and cut as obnoxiously Australian a promo as she possibly can. The first ever Women's Rumble is an iconic night. We're iconic. The thing writes itself, and she does some comedy stretches in the ring, waiting for the next entrant, which is number 9, Becky Lynch. Becky murders Billie Kay. Not entirely, right? It's not a squash. She doesn't eliminate her, but she takes her to Soup Beck's city. Sasha and Bayley have stirred, and the 3 horsewomen notice each other. They circle, are about to mix it up when the counter starts again. The 3 women actually agree, you know what, let's be smart about this. Let's work together for now and line up, preparing for the next entrant, number 10, Asuka. Asuka enters a lot earlier than she did in real life because she's an absolute monster and 25 seems way too late an entrance number for her. She's a destroyer and needs to be given the opportunity to destroy with a longer stretch of survival. Also, entering in the first half of the field slightly lessens her chances of winning and makes the rest of the match feel a little less predictable. Asuka stands in the ring opposite 3 out of the 4 horsewomen and just smiles like the wonderful psychopath that she used to be. Then all 3 women go for her and she delivers kicks and hip strikes with wild abandon. It is so hot in here, god damn it. Number 11, Beth Phoenix. After 10 entrants, we get our first nostalgia pop, and the middle section of the Rumble is where I'm going to do most of the nostalgic returns. Fill out that traditional kind of dip in the middle of a Rumble match with some happy memories. The Glamazon enters and squares up to Asuka, the monster of yesteryear versus the monster of today, and the 2 exchange moves with Phoenix even powering Asuka up for the Glam Slam. In comes number 12, Peyton Royce. The second half of the Iconics enters the fray, targeting Banks and Bayley, double teaming Becky, double teaming Beth, standing tall as a team until in comes number 13, Natalya, and we get the Divas of Doom reunion thing, which I think is neat. The Divas of Doom take out the Iconics, pick them up, eliminates both of them before they also take out Sasha and Bayley. The Divas embrace in the middle of the ring, and like in real life, Natalya betrays her best friend, throwing her over the top rope and celebrating in the middle of the ring. Natty then turns around into a roundhouse kick from Asuka, sparking her the f*** out. Asuka picks her up and eliminates her and Beth have this kind of awkward moment on the outside. Becky and Asuka exchange suplexes for a bit before Sasha and Bayley wake up and all 3 put the boots to the Empress of Tomorrow. In comes number 14, Ember Moon. The NXT Women's Champion enters with her arm taped up after her match against Shayna Baszler the night before at TakeOver Philadelphia. She runs down, hops up onto the turnbuckle, and immediately hits an eclipse onto Becky Lynch before throwing hands with Bayley and Sasha Banks. After knocking both women down, Moon and Asuka encounter each other and allow the crowd to soak it in, rekindling their really underrated rivalry. Like, those 2 work so well together in NXT. They wrestle for a bit before running at each other, colliding in midair, falling to the mat. In comes number 15, Mickie James. In comes Mickie to throw a few mitt kicks before her and Becky Lynch go at it, a callback to Becky being Mickie's first feud after a WWE return. Meanwhile, Ember has her injured arm smashed between the ring and the ring steps by Asuka, who then eliminates her because from their history in NXT, Asuka knows that Moon can absolutely take her and that Moon needs to be neutralized as quickly as possible. Bayley, Sasha, and Becky try to eliminate Asuka again as she celebrates, but she clings on. In comes number 16, Vickie Guerrero. Excuse me. It was delightful. It really was. It would be an absolute piss take for me to alter it in any way. The former general manager and eternal heat engine walks down to the ring with a microphone in her hand, screeching her catchphrase as often as she can before her lungs escape from her body and face hug her off into the stands. All the women briefly get on the same page, picking Guerrero up over their head and dumping her as safely as they can to the outside. As they carry her across the ring, she's still screaming, "Excuse me," and she's mid-catchphrase. She plummets to the ground. Then in comes number 17, Trish Stratus. Hooray. Trish enters the match to a thunderous ovation, delivers double stratisfaction to Sasha and Bayley. Mickie James and Trish then find each other in the ring. As how it happened in real life, they have a brief tussle before Stratus eliminates James, getting a measure of revenge for her historic WrestleMania 22 loss to the unhinged Stalker. Number 18, Lana. It wouldn't be a Royal Rumble without a shockingly quick elimination, and Lana is the unfortunate soul to be sacrificed to the gods in name of a comedy pop. She enters the ring and poses before immediately being clotheslined over the top rope by Sasha and Bayley. She sits on the outside doing her best "I am just outraged" face as Sasha waves goodbye at her and Bayley then shrugs. Trish Stratus then grabs both women from behind, hits another double stratisfaction. Trish stands tall in the middle of the ring, waiting for the next entrant, who is, of course, inevitably, wonderfully, number 19, Lita. Hooray again. How do you put both women in the same Rumble and not have them come face to face? WWE, I do not understand you sometimes. Trish and Lita hug in the middle of the ring and then start battering each other. Lita reverses a stratisfaction into a twist of fate, climbs to the top of the turnbuckle and hits Stratus with her increasingly dangerous looking Lita Salt. Number 20, Nia Jax. Filling the big unstoppable elimination machine role of this year's Rumble is not Michelle McCool, believe it or not. It's Nia Jax, before her legacy disappeared forever down her hole, who runs down and starts laying out everyone with clotheslines. Trish and Lita hit her with double drop kicks, but she stays on her feet, staggers into the ropes. Lita and Trish run at her, but Jax ducks, and both Trish and Lita gone in one move. Jax cements herself now as the bastard. Considerable boos. Number 21, Tamina, because apparently I have been informed by numerous sources that there is nobody meaner. Tamina and Jax square off, hoss fight, why not, carving slices off each other. Tamina hits a super kick on Jax, who stays standing. Tamina hits another, Jax is still on her feet. Tamina hits a third, finally Jax goes down. Tamina picks her up, tries to eliminate her, but Nia powers her over the top rope instead. In comes number 22, Nikki Bella. You can look, but you can't touch, because the weather is too hot for that. Nikki returns to the ring, immediately goes after Nia because it's John Cena and the Big Show all over again. She manages to power Nia onto her shoulders for a finisher in true Cena style, but Jax gets free, but only for a short while as Nikki clatters her with a disaster kick. Jax rolls out of the ring for a breather. Sasha, Bayley, and Nikki then briefly team up and heave her and plant her through the announce table, briefly felling the beast. Number 23, Charlotte. Woo! The queen of WWE enters with a plate of chops. Everyone gets a taste before Charlotte and Asuka find each other. The two women have never encountered each other before, and they circle each other, allowing the crowd to realize this, hopefully build in anticipation and volume a mini Hogan Warrior style moment. They start chopping the living crap out of each other as hard as they can. Number 24, Nikki Cross. The rabid Glaswegian pitbull runs down, pushes Charlotte out of the way, and immediately leaps on Asuka, showering her with punches, harkening back to their awesome Last Woman Standing match from the year before. Nikki Cross and Nikki Bella then come face to face for no other reason than both their names are Nikki, and I really like how different two people with the same name can be. Number 25, Brie Bella. Brie mode. That song is the worst of, it's the worst. Brie mode. Brie rushes in to save her sister, and the twins team up to eliminate Nikki Cross. They hug in the middle of the ring before Nikki attempts to eliminate her sister. Just do it immediately. Just do the spot immediately. Brie survives. Nikki apologizes. They hug again before Brie tries to do exactly the same thing. Nikki survives, and the sisters start to fight before Nia Jax hops back into the ring and eliminates them both. I'm just... Bye Bellas. Number 26, Naomi. Naomi enters and lays people out with kicks before Nia Jax knocks her on her ass. Nia screams in the middle of the ring like the monster that she is, and then turns around to see Charlotte, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Bayley lined up behind her. Finally, in the Rumble match, the four horsewomen are reunited on the main roster in an actual match. Genuinely, they haven't properly done it in a proper match. Jax fights them off for a while, but in the end, the combined teamwork of the four horsewomen forces Nia over the top rope to the outside to the floor. For a moment, the horsewomen stand, look at each other, and they raise their hands in the horsewoman gesture. The counter counts down. What poor soul is going up against this united foursome? Number 27 is Dana Brooke. Oh, I'm sorry, Dana. I'm really sorry. I think Dana Brooke's really fun. Dana enters. She's really scared. Proceeds to eat a finisher for each of the 4 horsewomen before being promptly eliminated. The horsewomen nod at each other and start fighting amongst themselves because teaming up for too long would be heel behavior. After all, Naomi's thrown out of the ring, but Nia, who is still around and furious, catches her and slams her into the timekeeper's area. After collecting herself, Naomi does what she did in real life, using a wheelie chair to walk herself back into the ring. If there's anyone who's going to do the Kofi Kingston spotlight, Naomi's brilliant at it. Keep her doing it forever. 28, Kairi Sane. The Pirate Princess of NXT runs down, climbs immediately to the top turnbuckle, and spotting Bayley's prone body on the ground, hits her with her beautiful, beautiful elbow drop, which is a little Easter egg. Remember that tiny window of outrage when rumors circulated that Kairi Sane wouldn't be allowed to use her elbow drop because apparently WWE thought it was Bayley's move? That's just a little bit of fun. Zayn pops up and immediately runs into Asuka, and the 2 premier Japanese athletes mix it up, bringing a small amount of strong style into the Royal Rumble. Number 29, Molly Holly. Hooray once again. Cut immediately to Alex, Queen of the Ring, marking out in the crowd. One of the most underrated women's wrestlers of all time. Molly Holly is here, and she can still out-wrestle half the people on the roster. She hits a Molly go round on Becky Lynch and politely accepts her "you still got it" chance. Too hot, too hot, too hot. There's only one entrant left in the Royal Rumble, and everyone's watching at home, and all the big names we knew were coming has been. So everyone in the arena thinks it's going to be Ronda Rousey. The countdown starts, slowly kicks down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Number 30, Stephanie McMahon. Welcome to the Queendom, everybody. It's where the kings bow down. Stephanie McMahon rises from her spot at the announce table, removes her jacket to reveal she's wearing wrestling gear underneath. She takes a microphone and talks about what a historic night it is. She walks around the ring as everyone inside it gradually stops wrestling and just watches her. She proceeds to take entire credit for the women's revolution in WWE, says the Women's Rumble was her idea, that is her blessing and her hashtag privilege to be the hashtag pioneer in the hashtag Divas revolution that the world desperately needs. She walks up the ring steps into the ring and stands there telling the fans that they are welcome. Her smile drops when she turns to see that every remaining competitor, which by the way, if you're not counting, is Naomi, Asuka, Molly Holly, and the 4 Horsemen and Kairi Sane, she sees them surrounding her. Now just wait a minute. Everyone starts putting the boots to Stephanie McMahon, and it's the most wonderful thing in the world. She's picked up, and Sasha Banks and Bayley, the 2 hardest working and longest surviving women in the match, throw her out of the ring. However, Stephanie is not done, grabs another microphone in order to scream at everyone in the ring. She shouts that no, the first Women's Royal Rumble will not end this way. I will not be embarrassed. This match will be restarted if it has to be, and anyone who lays a finger on me will be fired. Do you hear me? Fired! Fired! Ronda Rousey's music hits. The entire Rumble comes to a halt for a few minutes as Rousey makes her way down the ramp. She stands eye to eye with Stephanie McMahon, the billion-dollar princess who she had a run-in with at WrestleMania 31. Steph goes to slap her, but Rousey catches her hand, locks her in the same arm hold she did at WrestleMania 31, throws her to the ground, and Stephanie just retreats back up the ramp and flees to backstage as Ronda walks after her. When Rousey gets to the top of the ramp, she turns, points, naturally, like a human does, to the WrestleMania sign, winks, and then leaves. The 8 women left in the ring wait for a moment, think, well, wasn't that something? And then they start fighting again. Molly Holly and Naomi come to blows. Molly knocks Naomi down, climbs to the top of the turnbuckle to go for the Molly go round again, but she's nailed by a standing dropkick from Naomi. Molly Holly tumbles to the floor. She's eliminated. Shortly after, Asuka eliminates Kairi Sane, kicking her so hard she flies backwards over the top rope. Naomi runs at Asuka, but she low bridges and Naomi flies out of the ring. Also gone, Asuka crawls to the middle of the ring before realizing the situation she's in. The final 5 are Asuka and the 4 Horsewomen. Each of them stand in a corner of the ring, looking at her, holding up their Horsewomen hand signs, and once again, Asuka just smiles and goes, They rush her. Asuka kicks out at Sasha, but the other three knock her down, lay the boots in. The four women who are credited with revolutionizing women's wrestling stand over Asuka in the middle of the ring before suddenly Sasha grabs Bayley and hoofs her over the top rope because Sasha can't stop being Sasha. Becky and Charlotte stare at her and she just shrugs, being like, I gotta be me, before she attacks them too. It's every woman for herself, squeals Michael Cole. The final four, and it's very Bayley to just miss out on being in the final four of the first ever Rumble, brawl amongst themselves. Charlotte aims a big boot at Asuka, but she ducks and it connects with Becky, launching her over the top rope. Asuka then clotheslines Charlotte out of the ring, which, you know, sets something in motion, leaving just Asuka and Sasha Banks, who's probably lasted for over an hour at this point, legitimate title contender versus legitimate title contender. The two Raw women come to blows, but ultimately, Sasha can't overcome her exhaustion. The two women fight over the top rope onto the ring apron, and a kick to the head from Asuka deposits the boss onto the floor, wrecked. Asuka has won the Royal Rumble, because of course she did. She's Asuka. The Empress of Tomorrow goes on to switch over to SmackDown, faces Charlotte at Mania, who wins her championship back from Carmella at Fastlane in a mini dream match. Sasha and Bayley, after another tease here, they finally completely explode and face each other for the Raw Women's Championship at Mania, with Bayley winning the belt at Elimination Chamber and Sasha turning heel in jealous frustration and destroying her. So that is how I would have, in a very hot and horrible room, Jesus Christ, it's too hot in the UK right now. That is how I would have booked the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. This way, Rousey was introduced during the match so as not to steal focus from Asuka's win at the end. The four horsewomen got to reunite. The number of nostalgic cameos was reduced ever so slightly because, sure, celebrate women's wrestling's past, but because, let's be honest, the present and future for the division is much brighter than the past. That takes up, and it should take up, more of the Rumble's overall focus. With the first ever Women's Elimination Chamber match taking place only a month later. And that is the end of my booking. Is there anything you massively disagreed with? Is there anything that you really wanted to see in the first ever Women's Royal Rumble but you didn't? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video around if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to Parts Unknown for more silly wrestling content. Jam that jam. Oh, put me in a bath full of ice. Christ.